what Mr. Trump left me. We created 15,000 new jobs. And,
That's a minute.
We have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. The total initiative. The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration. I was recently in France, caused brain damage. This guy told Trump, do you think he'll stop if he takes Ukraine? What do you think of Belarus? United Nations Security Council, we are the biggest producer. No president in our history has spoken like that before. But I do know he has a real problem. We saw people occupying that. We're trying to provide housing. These corporations that collude. The impact on the choice. You increase economic growth, and anything having to do with volunteerism. We were the only ones of consequence. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. Ever elected to build these chips. I never heard a president talk like this before. You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds. Or 35 pounds. You get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability that reduced the federal debt all along. It's happening now. Well, every pharmaceutical company cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Oh, boy, do I have a bunch for you. That's just the beginning, folks. I had to leave out like 15 or 20 minutes of footage. It was that bad. I'll see you on the outside of 15 seconds.
Do you want the truth? Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more f***ed up than the lies on the evening news. Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party end.
Still Point, STIILPOINT, the Don't Unfriend Me band. Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show. Matthew Spear from the Don't Unfriend Me show. Did you watch the debate? What else could you have possibly been doing? Listen, I've been watching these darn things for 45 years. I loved politics at a young age, and I'll tell you, I've never even heard of anything like that before. It was hands down one of the most atrocious performances I've ever seen from someone running for president, let alone an actual president of the United States. Say what you will. But the Democrats are saying what, of course, they want to say, which is in the middle of this saying, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you he had a cold. Listen to this.
I think the first thing that many people witnessed in watching this debate was President Biden's shaky, hoarse voice. What's wrong with him?
Well, Nora, we only found out what's wrong with him about halfway through the debate. We started asking right away. As soon as he took the stage, as soon as he opened his mouth and started speaking, he obviously sounded raspy. And so I started firing off texts to various Biden campaign officials, what's wrong with him, and got radio silence. One person said, well, maybe he just needs to warm up. And then about 45 minutes in, a slew of responses from White House and Biden campaign officials saying, yes, he has had a cold for the past few days.
How long do you have, Barbara? I mean, this could take a while.
He was examined by his personal doctor, Kevin O'Connor, at Camp David. He tested negative for COVID, but he does have a cold, and that's why he is raspy. But that really begs the question, Nora, why they didn't let people know beforehand to sort of set expectations.
Because they didn't think of it.
Among the audience, so people weren't taken by surprise, particularly when so many voters already have concerns about his age, about his stamina. I asked all those White House officials after they confirmed that he was sick why they hadn't said anything in advance. Nobody answered.
It's almost like they don't know what to do because we've been telling them this. I've been saying this. Everyone's been saying this. This is the worst kept secret in the world. But this just in, folks, breaking news. Biden has had a cold for the last 48 years. The stage was set. The lights were bright. And America tuned in with bated breath to witness the much anticipated debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. What unfolded was a spectacle that could only be described as comedic tragedy, highlighting the stark contrast between the two candidates and the grim reality of the current state of the Democratic Party. Donald Trump, with his unwavering confidence and undeniable stage presence, demonstrated once again why he commands the most loyal voter base of any presidential candidate in recent history. His supporters, undeterred by the relentless media onslaught and blatant misinformation campaigns, remain steadfast in their allegiance. Trump's resilience and ability to expose the sinister plots of the left have awakened a new wave of political awareness among Americans and a large group of Democrats' voting base. They're not happy. In stark contrast, Joe Biden's performance was a dismal display of incoherence and incompetence. His decline, long suspected but vehemently denied by the mainstream media, was painfully evident. No deep fakes going on here. Despite the media's best efforts to cover up his shortcomings, Biden's inability to articulate a coherent thought was on full display for the nation to see. The man who once touted his experience and wisdom now appeared as a shell of his former self. Not much, even then. Stumbling over words and losing his train of thought, boarding at the station repeatedly. Let's be clear, Biden hasn't had a cold. He's been like this for 48 years. Biden's long history of gaffes and blunders is nothing new. His entire career has been marred by a series of missteps and controversial statements that have raised questions about his competence and judgment. From his early days in politics to his current presidency, Biden's track record is riddled with failure and embarrassing moments. In the 1970s, Biden's career began with a series of questionable decisions. His infamous opposition to busing in 1970, which aimed to desegregate schools, revealed his reluctance to support meaningful civil rights progress, even though he said he marched in the civil rights movement. Biden's comments during this period, where he expressed concern about his children growing up in a racial jungle, were not only racially insensitive, but indicative of his problematic views on race that would haunt him in the past, present, and future. Fast forward to the 1980s, and Biden's tendency to fabricate and embellish his personal history became apparent. His 1987 presidential campaign was derailed when it was revealed that he had plagiarized speeches from British politician Neil Kinnock. This scandal exposed Biden's lack of originality and integrity, forcing him to withdraw from the race in disgrace, only to be back again a couple decades later. Biden's questionable associations have also come under scrutiny. His close relationship with former Senator Robert Byrd, a former Klan member, raised eyebrows. Biden eulogized Byrd at his funeral, praising him as a mentor and a friend. This association with a known racist contradicts Biden's claims of being a champion for civil rights, let alone George Wallace and Strom Thurmond as well. As vice president under Barack Obama, Biden's gaffes continued. His remarks that Obama was the first mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean was widely criticized as racist and patronizing. Despite his attempts to portray himself as a progressive leader, Biden's history of racially insensitive comments and actions tells a different story. Biden's presidency has been no different. His handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal was a catastrophic failure, resulting in chaos and the loss of American lives. The hasty and poorly planned evacuation left behind thousands of Afghan allies and plunged the country into turmoil. Biden's inability to manage this crisis effectively was a stark reminder of his incompetence and a foreshadow to the hostages currently in Israel that he doesn't have any plans to do anything about. Domestically, Biden's economic policies have been disastrous. Inflation has soared to record levels, eroding the purchasing power of everyday Americans. His reckless spending and massive government interventions have only exacerbated the problem. Biden's attempts to downplay the severity of inflation and his inability to provide effective solutions have left Americans struggling to make ends meet and to also understand why Joe can't put two and two together. Biden's response to COVID-19 and the pandemic was also lackluster. His promises of shutting down the virus have proven empty as new variants continued to emerge under his presidency. Vaccine mandates and mixed messaging have only fueled public distrust and division. Biden's failure to provide clear and consistent leadership during that crisis has further eroded his credibility. As Biden fumbled through his responses during the debate, it became clear that his condition could no longer be hidden. The media's desperate attempts to spin his gaffes as minor slip-ups were laughable at best. For years, they've tried to convince the public that Biden's occasional stumbles were nothing to worry about. But now, as he struggled to keep up with Trump's relentless energy, the facade crumbled. Biden's so-called cold seems to have persisted for the last 48 years. It's reminiscent of Ronald Reagan. When everyone knew at the beginning of his second term that there was probably something going on, that's where Joe Biden was in 2016. He's long past due. The expiration date has come and gone. Team Biden is aware of the impending mass exodus of support following this debate. Even the most hardcore Democrats, driven by a reptilian brain loyalty to their party, are beginning to see the cracks in their candidates' armor. The numbers tell a grim story for Democrats, with their support dwindling daily, largely due to Trump's influence. Despite the relentless media attacks and blatant lies, Trump continues to crush the left, revealing their nefarious agendas and igniting a political awakening among the masses. Democrats and other leftists have few policy bastions left, reduced to chanting slogans like, "The democracy is at stake." They fail to see the irony in their own actions. It is the Democrats who are systematically dismantling the republic they claim to protect. Poll numbers from Quinnipiac paint a telling picture. In a head-to-head matchup, Trump holds a slight lead over Biden, 49 to 45%. This is a small change from previous polls, but it signals a shift in the political landscape. Republicans and independents are rallying behind Trump, while Democrats cling to Biden out of sheer desperation. In a hypothetical six-way race, Trump still leads with Biden, trailing behind the independent candidates like Robert F. Kennedy and Jill Stein, siphoning off significant portions of the vote. The poll numbers, however, do not capture the full extent of Biden's unpopularity. Common sense dictates that Americans are wary of 4 more years under an old, demented, and crooked president. The prospect of Kamala Harris stepping in as the next pretender only adds to the unease. America is just not that foolish. Despite Biden's attempts to convince the nation that he has done a good job, the public isn't buying it. Take inflation, for example. When questioned about it, Biden glosses over the issue and brags about his fabricated jobs growth. Something like, created 500 billion jobs? Is that what he said? His detachment from reality is glaring as he ignores the devastating impact of his policies. The American people see through the charade, recognizing that Biden is too incompetent to address the nation's challenges effectively. The Quinnipiac poll also reveals a significant portion of voters supporting Biden, Trump, and Kennedy are all open to changing their choice based on debate performances. Whoops! This reinforces the notion that Biden's support is tenuous at best. Trump supporters know their candidate well. He's been the most vetted and persecuted candidate in history. Biden, on the other hand, has yet to face a true reckoning. The more revelations about his corruption and incompetence come to light, the more his support will erode. Biden's downfall is evident in nearly every demographic. Inflation hits all Americans, especially older ones, who were once considered Biden's stronghold. But as economic hardships mount, even this group is beginning to waver. The notion that 16% of voters could change their minds based on a debate performance further underscores Biden's vulnerability. The man who is known, Trump, stands firm, while Biden, who is about to be exposed, risks losing whatever support he has left. The debate between Biden and Trump was a stark reminder of the current political reality. Trump remains a formidable force with unwavering support, while Biden's decline is becoming impossible to ignore. The media's efforts to prop up Biden are failing, and the American people are waking up to the harsh truths about his presidency. The Democrats' policy failures and lack of viable candidates spell trouble for their future as the nation watches the unraveling of Biden's campaign. It becomes clear that the time for change is now, but too late for the left. America needs leaders who can steer the republic towards prosperity and security, not those who cling to power despite their evident incapacity. Folks, thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me Show. Matthew Spear is my name. You can catch us tonight at 7 o'clock. It's Red Friday. Please wear something red. Be on tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then. Stop by thedumshow.com if you would. Pick up a shirt, a hat, some coffee, or something like that. We'll see you at 7 o'clock tonight, and God bless.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, Olivia, and Mike. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on the Spreely.tv network and all major social media channels at The DUM Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.